Jena, Louisiana, the Jena Six. Big news article, Friday, September 21st, 2007. My, the thousands of people that went down to that little Louisiana town to march together, to assemble for justice for the Jena Six. Well, I'm for justice, and I'm for justice for the Jena Six and for whoever. Excuse me. But one thing I know is that some people think that was just a big tempest in a teapot over nothing, and I'll tell you what, I don't think it was over nothing. I think it was over something pretty vitally important to this country. And in reading the article, one little paragraph caught my attention when the writer quoted a little girl called Misty Ray. That reporter, Marisol Bello, she didn't say whether that little girl was black or white. And you know what? It doesn't matter whether she's black or white. What matters is that she lives in Jena, Louisiana, and she wants justice for everybody. And the inference I got from her little quotation was not just for anybody. So I think she was white, and I think she wanted justice for the 6 kids in the way of penalty because of beating up on that white boy. But whether that's true or not doesn't matter. Justice. What's right is right, what's fair is fair. That's the important point that the little girl was making. And wouldn't it be nice? How could anybody be against justice? Justice. What a nice word. But, you know, there's a little bit of a problem. Yeah, it's so American for justice. Do we always see justice in America? Well, thousands, millions think that O.J. got away with murder. At the same time, some of us think he might be getting railroaded a little bit right now because of the fact that we, as a country, think he got away with murder. Let's sock it to him now over that Las Vegas deal. No, that wouldn't necessarily be justice. Well, I do know this. Being fair and rendering justice isn't always easy. And I'm not just talking about the police department or the lawyers or the judges or the juries. As a principal, I found out, hey, you can be principal of a school building, a school campus, and be the man that's got to make some big decisions about justice when there's conflict. Conflict either between groups or more commonly between individual kids that get into a fight. Made a lot of people mad because I hadn't been at that game too long before it sunk in on me that some groups, some kids, some bullies are very skillful at picking on their victim until the victim hits back, and they just beat the crap out of them. But I'm innocent. That guy struck the first blow. So what do? I put in a policy. If you fight at school, both parties, both groups, if it's a group thing, get punished. Boy, did that upset some teachers. Even more so some parents when they thought their little Johnny was being abused by that policy. But I can tell you this, that policy was a keystone to a situation that led to sometimes months, sometimes I think maybe even once a whole year, no fights at school. And by the way, it takes about 1.5 years for a principal working hard on this sort of thing to get that understood and get a level of discipline in a school where you don't have this kind of fighting going on. And I cheated a little. There was another corollary policy. If you're going to fight, go home. Tell your mother or dad, I'm going to go whip Cousin Bill, and be sure Cousin Bill has gone home from school told his parents, I'm going to go whip Cousin John so that if you guys fight, it's none of the school's business. And incidentally, those two policies together, as far as I know, didn't cause a lot more fights away from school either. So wouldn't it be nice if you could be so sure of what's right, if you were the principal, the superintendent, etc., down at Jena? Who was at fault? Certainly, was the assistant principal at fault when those black boys, two boys asked him, could they sit under that tree? And he said, the politically correct thing, you have the right to sit under any tree you want to on this campus. Were the two boys at fault? The nerve of them to ask a question like that. Everybody knows that only white kids sit under that tree. It's been that way for years. Well, yeah, I suppose they were at fault. But you know what? It might have been the kind of fault that Rosa Parks was showing when years ago she said, no, I'm not going to go to the back of the bus. I'm sitting right here. Was she considered at fault at that time in that racially bigoted area that she was in? Oh, I reckon she was. And now she looked at as a national hero. Was the fault the people that hung the nooses after those black boys so audaciously sat under the tree? Was the fault of the principal, the school administration, the school board, etc., that they didn't go after finding out who hung the nooses and do something about it, and didn't initiate some programs to get by this obviously touchy situation? Well, yes, I think there's some fault there too. Maybe the most fault does fall on the school principal, the school superintendent, and the school board, because it is the primary duty of those officials to ensure the safety of the students at school. Well, I do know this, that if there's going to be any real justice in the end, they'd better do as much or more to the people that hung the nooses. And by the way, those nooses probably weren't even hung by students. They quite likely were hung by the more radical element that's in the community that heard about what happened and said, by God, we're not putting up with that. You know, the same kind of people that I was around that said that if Colin Powell's elected president, I'll personally try to assassinate him. Not having a black man be president. There's idiots out there. But I think that if they're going to do anything, you know, those 6 kids and those 7 kids, the victim and the 6 that beat up on him, they're all guilty of being victims of racial bigotry, racial prejudice. And you can't put racial bigotry or racial prejudice in front of a court and find it guilty and punish it. So if you're going to punish the 6 boys that did the beating of that white boy, for God's sakes, get busy and find out who hung the nooses and punish those people at least as much, and I think more, than the 7 kids that were victims of that hateful thing of hanging those nooses.